Welcome to Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up, where we break down the most critical developments in global security, espionage, terrorism, and foreign interference. With over 25 years of experience in intelligence and law enforcement, Neil Bisson, the director of the Global Intelligence Knowledge Network and a retired CSIS intelligence officer, offers expert insight and analysis beyond the headlines. This week, the Trump administration faces turmoil as National Security Advisor Mike Waltz steps down after a serious operational security breach and mounting internal friction. In Israel, the head of Shin resigns following explosive accusations of political interference by Prime Minister Netanyahu, further deepening the cracks in Israel's intelligence community. Meanwhile, Iran executes a man accused of spying for Mossad in connection with a brazen assassination in Tehran, intensifying the long-running shadow war between the two countries. In Europe, a German parliamentary aide is charged with spying for China, while in Greece, an alleged Russian agent is arrested for gathering intelligence near key NATO infrastructure. Plus, a China-linked cyber espionage campaign targets critical infrastructure, Taiwan cracks down on dual Chinese identity holders over espionage concerns, and India and Pakistan teeter on the brink of conflict following a deadly terrorist attack in Kashmir. All that and more. So let's get started.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. I'm your host, Neil Bisson, a retired CSIS intelligence officer and the director of the Global Intelligence Knowledge Network. It's been a week of resignations and firings of some top national security officials around the world, as well as China's continued efforts to infiltrate foreign governments and further tensions between India and Pakistan. So without further ado, let's get into it. For our first story, we examine the recent developments surrounding U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who is stepping down from his position amid internal controversies and strategic disagreements within the Trump administration. Mike Waltz, a former Republican congressman from Florida and retired Army Green Beret, has been serving as President Trump's national security advisor since January. His tenure has been marked by a series of challenges, culminating in his impending departure from the role. A significant incident contributed to this development occurred in March 2025 when Waltz inadvertently added a journalist from The Atlantic to a private signal chat discussing sensitive military plans in Yemen. This breach raised serious concerns about operational security and judgment within the National Security Council. Additionally, Waltz faced criticism from his hawkish foreign policy stance, which reportedly clashed with President Trump's more isolationist approach. Sources within the administration indicated that Waltz's coordination among various government agencies was deemed ineffective, leading to dysfunction in formulating cohesive foreign policy strategies. His deputy, Alex Wong, an expert on Asia and North Korean policy, is also stepping down. The National Security Council has not provided official comments on these departures. Waltz's appointment as a national security advisor was part of President Trump's effort to align his national security team with his America First agenda. However, internal disagreements and operational missteps have led to a reevaluation of the leadership within the National Security Council. The National Security Advisor plays a crucial role in coordinating foreign policy across various government agencies. Effective communication and alignment with the President's vision are essential for this position. Waltz's challenges in these areas have prompted the administration to consider new leadership to better execute his strategic objectives. Potential replacements for Waltz include Steve Witkoff, a special envoy involved in Russia, Ukraine, and Middle East diplomacy. The Trump administration is expected to announce a successor who will effectively navigate the complex landscape of international relations while aligning with the president's policies preferences. Analysts suggest that the departure of Waltz reflects the ongoing struggle within the Trump administration to balance assertive foreign policy actions with a broader strategy of non-interventionism. The incident involving the signal chat underscores the importance of stringent operational security protocols, especially when dealing with sensitive military operations. From my professional perspective, leadership changes in the National Security Council can have significant implications for U.S. foreign policy. Ensuring that the new advisor can effectively coordinate among agencies and maintain operational security will be critical in addressing current global challenges. The resignation of National Security Advisor Mike Waltz marks a pivotal moment in the Trump administration approach to foreign policy and national security. As the administration seeks new leadership to guide its strategic direction, the effectiveness of the transition will closely be watched by both domestic and international observers. We head to Israel for our next story as we dive into the seismic shakeup within the intelligence community. The head of Israel's domestic security service, Shin, Ronen Bar, has announced his resignation effective June 15th, after a fierce and very public battle with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This story, reported by BBC News, is more than just a bureaucratic feud. It exposes deepening rifts in Israeli governance, intelligence oversight, and civil-military relations. At the heart of the story is a confrontation that's unprecedented in Israeli intelligence history. Ronen Bar's resignation comes on the heels of an intense public and legal dispute with Netanyahu, who accused Bar of professional failures related to the October 7th Hamas attacks. Bar, in turn, accused the Prime Minister of demanding personal loyalty, politicizing the intelligence service, and even pressuring Shin to spy on anti-government protesters. These are explosive allegations, particularly in a country where the intelligence services are expected to remain apolitical. If true, they suggest an attempted weaponization of domestic intelligence tools for political ends. That crosses a bright red line in democratic governance. Some of my regular listeners may remember the story from last week's episode concerning the Mossad director, David Barnea, having accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of pressuring the agency to carry out operations that may have violated both Israeli law and internal intelligence protocols. This 1-2 punch from both Mossad and Shin to the Netanyahu administration shows signs of troubled intelligence apparatus for Israel. From an intelligence perspective, this not only undermines institutional trust, it jeopardizes operational focus. Shin, like any domestic security agency, must be agile and independent, especially during a national crisis like the ongoing war in Gaza. To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the months before October 7th attacks. Israel has seen continuous and regular mass protests against Netanyahu's efforts to curb judicial power. Bar now says that during this time, he was pressured to conduct surveillance against protest leaders, essentially turning Shin into a political instrument. That tension exploded after the Hamas attacks, which exposed glaring intelligence and operational gaps. Netanyahu blamed Bar for those failures and moved to fire him, but was blocked by Israel's Attorney General in the Supreme Court, which is still reviewing the legality of that decision. The broader context is a country split down the middle. Those supporting Netanyahu's hardline approach to Gaza, and those who want to prioritize rescuing Israeli hostages, even if it means negotiating with Hamas. Bar's resignation highlights that this divide is now infecting the very top of Israel's security establishment. Though the article doesn't feature external intelligence experts, Bar's own words were damning. He chose to resign during a memorial of fallen Shin officers, saying that every public servant who has failed to prevent the October 7th attacks must now bow their heads humbly before those who were killed or wounded or taken hostage. Netanyahu, in his affidavit to the court, went on the offensive, calling Bar a liar and blaming him for losing confidence of the entire Israeli government. From the lens of a retired intelligence officer, this situation is extraordinarily dangerous. Not only does it risk politicizing intelligence, but it sets a troubling precedent where future intelligence heads may be expected to choose loyalty to political leaders over institutional integrity. That's a recipe for a long-term dysfunction in any democracy. This story is far more than an internal dispute between Israel's prime minister and his top domestic spy. It's a warning sign of how political polarization can infiltrate even the most secretive and vital institutions. It also raises concerns about intelligence independence, oversight, and how leaders respond to failure. The coming weeks will be key. Will the Israeli Supreme Court rule on the legality of Bar's dismissal? Will future Shin heads face similar political pressure? And will Israeli society and its intelligence community be able to rebuild the public's trust? One thing is clear. The line between intelligence and politics should not be blurred by political party politics. Because when it is, national security becomes a tool of personal power, not the safety of the public. Sticking with stories concerning Israeli intelligence, our next story focuses on a recent execution in Iran. Authorities have hanged 34-year-old Mohsen Langarnishin, who was accused of spying for the Israeli Mossad and aiding in the 2022 assassination of a senior IRGC official. This story sheds light on the continuing shadow war between Iran and Israel and the harsh internal measures Tehran is willing to take in response. According to Iranian state media, Langarnishin was convicted of providing logistical, technical, and operational support to Mossad over a 2-year period beginning in 2020. His most serious alleged act was his involvement in the assassination of IRGC Colonel Saeed Kodeh in May 2022. Authorities claim he purchased a motorcycle to help track Kodeh's movements and passed that intelligence to Israeli operatives. From an intelligence perspective, this reflects the deep, ongoing covert conflict between Iran and Israel. Targeted assassinations, surveillance, and sabotage have become regular tactics in this high-stakes espionage battle. This case in particular highlights how foreign agencies may rely on local human assets to operate inside denied environments like Iran, an inherently dangerous and complex task. Colonel Aide was a high-ranking official in the IRGC's Quds Force and reportedly involved in Iran's extraterritorial operations, including plots against Israeli and Western targets. His killing in Tehran was one of the most brazen attacks on an Iranian official in recent memory and widely believed to have been orchestrated by Israel. Lagarnishin's execution fits a broader pattern. In recent years, Iran has responded to security breaches by carrying out executions of individuals it accuses of espionage. These moves serve as both punishment and deterrent, aiming to show strength in the face of foreign interference. Human rights groups have criticized the execution, raising serious concerns about due process. There have been claims that Lagarnishin denied the charges against him and that he was tortured into confessing. Other observers called the trial a sham, and the execution a state-sponsored killing carried out without adequate legal protections. Extricating confessions under duress completely undermines the integrity of the judicial process and, by extension, the credibility of any intelligence that results from it. While counterespionage is critical to national security, failing to uphold legal and ethical standards can have long-term negative consequences on both domestic legitimacy and international perception. The execution of Mohsen Lagarnishin is yet another example of how espionage and national security can collide with human rights. Iran's message to adversaries and citizens alike is clear: assisting foreign intelligence agencies will be met with the harshest of penalties. As the covert conflict between Iran and Israel escalates, we should expect more of these cases, highly secretive, politically charged, and often shrouded in contested facts. We head to Germany for our next story, where we're examining a significant emerging espionage case. A former aide to a far-right German lawmaker has been charged with spying for China, highlighting the ongoing concerns about foreign intelligence operations within European political institutions. German federal prosecutors have charged Jian Guo, a German citizen of Chinese descent, with espionage for allegedly working with Chinese intelligence services. Guo served as an aide to Maximilian Krah, a member of the European Parliament representing the far-right Alternative for Germany, or the AfD party. Between 2019 and 2024, Guo is accused of passing on sensitive information from the European Parliament to Chinese intelligence. This included over 500 documents, some classified as particularly sensitive. Additionally, Guo allegedly monitored Chinese dissidents in Germany, gathering personal data on individuals opposing the Chinese government. The case underscores the persistent threat of foreign espionage within democratic institutions. The infiltration of a parliamentary aide position allowed access to confidential information and the ability to monitor political opponents, posing significant risks to both national security and individual freedoms. The Alternative for Germany party has been under scrutiny for its controversial positions and alleged ties to foreign entities. Maximilian Krah, Guo's former employer, has faced criticism for his pro-China stance and comments downplaying the crimes of the Nazi SS, leading to his removal as the AfD's lead candidate in European elections. Guo's activities reportedly began as early as 2002, with his formal employment in the European Parliament starting in 2019. His arrest has intensified debates about the vulnerability of political institutions to foreign influence and the need for stringent security measures. German Interior Minister Nancy Fraser described the allegations as extremely serious, emphasizing the potential damage to democratic processes. Analysts have pointed out that this case reflects a broader pattern of Chinese intelligence efforts to infiltrate European political systems, gather sensitive information, and suppress dissent among expatriates. From my professional perspective, this incident highlights the necessity for robust counterintelligence protocols within political institutions. Chinese spy infiltration of Western governments isn't new. In September of 2024, I reported that Linda Sun, an alleged Chinese agent who held numerous roles in New York State government, including Deputy Chief of Staff for Governor Kathy Hochul. It is likely that there are Chinese agents working within all levels of government in Canada and the United States, at provincial, municipal, state, regional, and federal levels. The exploitation of insider positions by foreign intelligence services can have far-reaching implications, compromising not only national security, but also the integrity of democratic governance. The charges against Jian Guo serve as a constant reminder of the ongoing challenges posed by foreign espionage. As democratic societies, it's imperative to balance openness with vigilance, ensuring that our institutions are protected against covert operations that threaten our security and values. For our next story, we turn our attention to Greece, where authorities have arrested a 59-year-old man in Alexandroupolis on charges of espionage for Russian intelligence. This case underscores the persistent threat of foreign intelligence operations within NATO member states. The suspect, an ethnic Greek from Georgia and a permanent resident of Alexandroupolis, was officially employed as a house painter. However, Greek authorities allege that he was covertly gathering intelligence for Russia's military intelligence agency, the GRU. During a joint operation by Greece's National Intelligence Service, or the EYP, as well as the Hellenic Police, the suspect was found in possession of photos and videos of military installations and equipment on his mobile phone. He reportedly used encrypted applications to transmit the sensitive information to a contact believed to be a member of the international criminal network linked to the GRU. The suspect confessed to his activities, stating that he initially agreed to cooperate in exchange for fiscal compensation, but ultimately acted out of loyalty, declaring, "I'll do it for Mother Russia." Alexandroupolis, located in northeast Greece near the borders of Turkey and Bulgaria, has become a critical hub for NATO operations and Greek national defense. The port city has been instrumental in the transportation of military equipment, some of which is destined for Ukraine. The suspect's activities reportedly span over 6 months, during which he documented military installations and the movement of equipment. His recruitment is believed to have been facilitated by a member of a foreign-based criminal group involved in drugs and arms trafficking, who was tasked by the GRU to enlist individuals for espionage activities related to military infrastructure. Greek public broadcaster ERT reported that authorities suspect the man's actions may have been part of a broader sabotage plan targeting military facilities. The individual who recruited him is believed to be a member of an international criminal network that was allegedly recruited by the GRU specifically to enlist individuals for espionage activities. The use of criminal organizations as proxies for foreign intelligence agencies like the GRU is a form of hybrid warfare that Russia and China are well known for, and employ to destabilize other countries they feel pose a threat. This case highlights the sophisticated methods employed by foreign intelligence services to infiltrate and gather information within NATO territories. The use of local operatives, often with personal or ideological ties to the recruiting nation, poses a significant challenge to national security and underscore the need for vigilant counterintelligence efforts. The arrest in Alexandroupolis demonstrates the ongoing espionage threats faced by NATO member states. As geopolitical tensions persist, particularly concerning Russia's actions in Ukraine, the importance of robust intelligence and counterintelligence operations cannot be overstated. We head back to the United States for our next story, where we're examining a recent revelation from cybersecurity firm SentinelOne, which has uncovered a sophisticated cyber espionage campaign targeting its infrastructure and high-value clients. The campaign is attributed to a China-linked group known as Purple Haze. SentinelOne's investigation revealed that Purple Haze conducted reconnaissance attempts against its systems and those of its clients. The attackers employed advanced techniques, including the use of customized backdoor named Go-Re-Shell, written in the Go programming language, to establish reverse SSH connections to compromise endpoints. Notably, the attackers utilized an operational relay box or an orb network to create a dynamic and evolving infrastructure, complicating efforts to track and attribute their activities. The group also deployed a version of the ShadowPad backdoor, obfuscated using a bespoke compiler called Scatterbrain to infiltrate over 70 organizations across various sectors, including manufacturing, government, finance, telecommunications, and research. The Purple Haze Group's activities were first detected during a 2024 intrusion targeting an organization responsible for managing hardware logistics for SentinelOne employees. Further analysis linked the group to a previous attack on a South Asian government supporting entity in June 2024, suggesting a broader campaign targeting critical infrastructure and government organizations. The use of ShadowPad, a backdoor widely shared among China Nexus espionage groups, and the deployment of the Orb networks indicate a high level of sophistication and resource allocation, characteristic of state-sponsored threat actors. SentinelOne researchers highlighted the growing trend of using Orb networks among threat groups, emphasizing their ability to rapidly expand and adapt, thereby complicating tracking and attribution efforts. The researchers also noted the exact motivation behind the attacks remains unclear, given ShadowPad's recent use of this conduit to deliver ransomware, suggesting potential financial incentives alongside traditional espionage objectives. From my personal perspective, the convergence of espionage and financially motivated cybercrime tactics underscores the evolving nature of cyber threats. The integration of advanced tools and techniques by state-sponsored actors necessitate a proactive and adaptive cybersecurity posture among targeted organizations. The SentinelOne case exemplifies persistent and evolving threats posed by state-sponsored cyber espionage groups. The Purple Haze campaign's sophistication and scope highlight the critical need for robust cybersecurity measures and international cooperation to detect, attribute, and mitigate such threats. We turn our attention to Taiwan next, where authorities have intensified efforts to revoke citizenship or residency from individuals holding Chinese identity documents. This move underscores the island's growing concerns over Beijing's influence operations and the delicate balance between national security and civil liberties. Taiwanese law prohibits its citizens from holding Chinese identity documents, viewing such actions as a potential threat to national sovereignty. Recently, the government has revoked the citizenship of residency of over 20 individuals and is investigating more than 10,000 Chinese-born residents of potential violations. The crackdown gained momentum after revelations that Chinese authorities were covertly offering IDs to Taiwanese residents in China. This strategy is perceived as part of Beijing's broader United Front effort to assert control over Taiwan and sway public opinion in favor of unification. The situation escalated when 3 Chinese-born women were deported for using social media platforms to advocate for a Chinese takeover of Taiwan. These actions have sparked a nationwide debate on the limits of free speech and the measures necessary to safeguard national security. The issue of dual identification has long been a contentious topic in Taiwan. Holding a Chinese ID or household registration, known as a boku, is illegal under Taiwanese law. However, the recent surge in enforcement reflects heightened concerns over China's attempts to undermine Taiwan's autonomy. Authorities have contacted thousands of Chinese-born long-term residents demanding proof that they have renounced their Chinese hoku. While the government has promised leniency and a case-by-case exemption, critics argue that these measures risk dividing society and infringing upon democratic values. China has seized the opportunity to criticize Taiwan's actions, accusing the ruling party of repression and using the situation for propaganda purposes. This underscores the complexity and the interplay between national security imperatives and the preservation of democratic freedoms. Human rights advocates have expressed concern over the potential for these measures to suppress dissent and erode civil liberties. They argue that while national security is paramount, it should not come at the expense of individual rights and freedoms. The Taiwanese government's actions reflect a challenging but necessary response to covert influence operations. The delicate task lies in implementing security measures that protect the nation without compromising the democratic principles that define it. Taiwan's crackdown on holders of Chinese identity documents highlights the ongoing struggle to maintain sovereignty in the face of external pressures. As Beijing continues its effort to assert influence over the island, Taiwan must navigate the complex terrain of enforcing security measures while upholding the democratic values that distinguish it. Move on to Southeast Asia for our last story this week. We are examining the escalating tensions between India and Pakistan following a devastating terrorist attack in Indian-administered Kashmir. The incident has reignited long-standing hostilities between the two nuclear-armed neighbors, raising concerns over regional stability and international security. As I reported last week, on April 22, 2025, a brutal terrorist attack occurred in the Besaran Valley near Pahalgam, resulting in the deaths of 28 civilians, including 25 Hindu tourists, 1 Christian tourist, and 1 local Muslim guide. The assailants, armed with automatic weapons, reportedly targeted victims based on their religious identity. Initially, the Resistance Front, or the TRF, believed to be an offshoot of Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba, claimed responsibility for the attack, but later retracted their statement. Indian authorities have linked the perpetrators to Pakistan, citing digital footprints and forensic evidence pointing to safe houses in Muzaffarabad and Karachi. In response, India has taken several measures. They have expelled Pakistani diplomats and recalled their own from Islamabad, suspended the Indus Waters Treaty, a critical water sharing agreement, closed borders and revoked visas for Pakistan nationals, and initiated military operations along the line of control. Pakistan has denied involvement in the attack and has responded by suspending the Simla Agreement, a foundational diplomatic accord, closing its airspace to Indian aircraft and restricting trade routes, expelling Indian diplomats and suspending visa services, heightening military readiness along the line of control. These actions have led to skirmishes along the border, with reports of cross-border firing and the downing of an Indian drone by Pakistani forces. The Kashmir region has long been a flashpoint between India and Pakistan, with both countries claiming it but only controlling parts of it. Previous incidents, such as the 2019 Pulwama attack, have led to similar escalations, including airstrikes and military standoffs. The current situation is exacerbated by the involvement of militant groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and its alleged proxies, which India accuses Pakistan of supporting. Pakistan, in turn, denies these allegations and calls for neutral investigations. The international community, including the United States and the United Nations, has urged both nations to exercise restraint and engage in dialogue to prevent further escalation. Analysts warn that the current standoff is one of the most severe in recent years, with both nations taking unprecedented steps, such as suspending key treaties and agreements. The involvement of nuclear capabilities adds a layer of complexity and danger to this situation. From my professional perspective, the rapid escalation underscores the volatility of the region and the importance of the robust intelligence and diplomatic channels to manage such crises. The use of proxy groups and asymmetric warfare tactics complicates attribution and response strategies, making de-escalation efforts even more critical. The recent attack in Pahalgam has brought India and Pakistan to the brink of conflict, highlighting the fragile nature of peace in the region. As both nations navigate this crisis, the role of international diplomacy and intelligence sharing becomes paramount in preventing a full-scale confrontation. Well, that's going to do it for this week. As always, links to the open source stories discussed in this episode are available in the transcript. I'd like to remind the audience that I will be teaching a one-day online course at the University of Ottawa's Professional Development Institute later this month. The course starts on May 14th and runs over 2 days, 3 hours each day. It's offered through the National Security Program and is entitled Psychology Behind Human Sources and Intelligence Collection. The course is very interactive, and I will be doing a deep dive into the motivations of human sources and how those motivations are identified and utilized by intelligence organizations for recruitment and source management. I'll leave a link in the show notes for anyone interested in registering for the course. Until next week, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.
That's a wrap for this week's Global Intelligence Weekly Wrap-Up. From a high-profile shakeup in the U.S., National Security Council to growing political pressure on Israeli intelligence leaders. From espionage arrests in Europe to cyber campaigns linked to China, this week's stories show just how complex and contested the global security environment has become. Each episode takes time, deep analysis, and over 2 decades of intelligence experience to bring you the kind of insights you won't find in the headlines. If you found this episode useful or thought-provoking, please consider liking, sharing, or leaving a review. It's a simple way to show your support and help others find the podcast. And if you'd like to take your support a step further, you can contribute through Patreon or Buzzsprout. Whether it's a one-time show of appreciation or ongoing support, it helps keep these episodes coming. You'll find both links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening. And as Neil always says, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe. See you next week.